What's up, guys? It's me Boxing, and today I'm going to be predicting the outcome of Vergil Ortiz Jr. versus Maurice Hooker, which will be a 12-rounder in the welterweight division. And this fight is going to be Saturday, March 20th, from the Dickies Arena in Fort Worth, Texas. And this fight is going to be broadcasted on DAZN. And again, both fighters, Vergil Ortiz Jr., he holds an unbeaten record of 16-0, with all 16 of his wins coming by way of knockout. He's currently ranked number 17 by BoxRec in the welterweight division. And he's the current WBA Gold welterweight world champion. And that means he's one of the four WBA world champions. But just to get into his resume, he has some very, very good wins, as he's already been the main event on many DAZN cards, as he knocked out Antonio Orozco. He also has a knockout win over Brad Solomon, and a KO win against Samuel Vargas. And I did make a video on that fight, so I would appreciate it if you guys could go check that out. But Vergil Ortiz is definitely very powerful, very speedy, but he hasn't been chin-checked yet. And fighting Maurice Hooker, who's a very powerful and skilled guy, it could be the time he will, because Ortiz Jr.'s best win was arguably Brad Solomon, maybe Orozco, or even Vargas. I mean, those are very good wins, but still, they're not on the level of Maurice Hooker. But just to get into his opponent, Maurice Hooker, he holds a record of 27 wins, 1 defeat with 3 draws, and 18 wins coming by way of knockout. Maurice Hooker is ranked number 13 by BoxRec, so there's a difference of 4 in BoxRec's rankings. But that's actually, I would see that, because Maurice Hooker is a former world champion at 140, got an excellent knockout win in his first fight at 147, and he's definitely world class. But he does have plenty of draws. He has a draw in his pro debut. He has a draw to Abel Ramos, former world title challenger, and a draw to Darles Perez. But he won that WBO super lightweight world title against Terry Flanagan by split decision, and it was vacant at the time, and he won it in the UK. So, I was very surprised that they gave Hooker the decision because it was in the UK, but I thought Hooker won that fight. But he defended that title against up-and-coming Alex Saucedo at the time. He did get dropped in that fight, Hooker did, but he came back and knocked Alex Saucedo out in the 7th round. And then he had another title defense against Mikel Lepierre, where he did win via wide unanimous decision, and he did drop Lepierre in the process. But then he lost by knockout in a firefight against Jose Carlos Ramirez back in July of 2019, and that was a war, and that was for the unified world titles. He was defending his WBO belt, while Ramirez put up his WBC, and he did, I believe he got dropped early on, but it wasn't really a real knockdown. Ramirez stepped on Hooker's shoe when he went down, but I thought that Hooker was landing some good jabs. He was getting his shots in there, and he was winning some of those rounds up until later in the fight, where Ramirez, who's also part of the Robert Garcia stable, same with Vergil Ortiz, so he definitely has a plan to beat Maurice Hooker. But Hooker got caught with a beautiful shot, wobbled up to the ropes, and then got hammered, and the referee had to stop the fight standing, and Hooker was out on his feet, and it was a good stoppage there. But he came back, as I said before, knocking Uriel Lopez out in the first round. But I'm actually very excited for this fight. Many people are just crediting Hooker just based off of his loss to Jose Carlos Ramirez, and the fact that he's just been sort of, I guess you could say, chinny in his many fights. But Hooker's very skilled, very well balanced. He's very lengthy. I believe he does have the reach advantage over Ortiz, but Ortiz is a very vicious pressure fighter. He's the hungrier man in this fight, in my opinion. I think he will come on strong and try and knock Hooker's head off. Ortiz is a very powerful guy. You could see it even on paper. He's got 16 knockouts and 16 wins. And I believe Maurice Hooker was saying, who has Vergil Ortiz fought in a recent interview? He's fought some decent guys. His resume is not bad, but definitely not as good as Hooker's. But I think Hooker's going in a downward spiral, even though he is coming off of a first-round knockout. But Uriel Perez, I should say, is not really too great of an opponent. But Vergil Ortiz Jr., up and coming, he's in his early 20s. I could definitely see him being a world champion and being a major threat in the near future. And I think Vergil Ortiz will stop Maurice Hooker and get a statement stoppage win there, and that will definitely set him up for a world title fight, possibly against Terrence Crawford, being that this is for the WBO International title. And the WBO International title, if you don't know, it's basically like the WBC silver title, where it gets them either in the top 3 or the mandatory spot to that WBO world title, and they could possibly fight for an interim next if the champions possibly unifying or fighting for undisputed titles. But many people are picking Vergil Ortiz from what I've been seeing, and I'm going to go on that train. I think Vergil Ortiz will stop Maurice Hooker, as I said before, and it just depends on which round it will be. I could definitely see Vergil Ortiz coming out, and he'll definitely be a little tentative at first because Maurice Hooker, very skilled fighter, and yet again, Ortiz Jr. has not faced anyone of the caliber of Hooker, but I just think he's going to come on strong, pressure Hooker up against the ropes, and it might be a carbon copy of that Jose Carlos Ramirez fight, minus possibly, obviously, Hooker going down early on, even though it wasn't really a knockdown. But I could definitely see a very similar fight to the Ramirez fight, where Ortiz and Hooker trade for many of the rounds up until like round 6 or 5, and then Ortiz will land a beautiful shot that will knock Hooker out. But as opposed to that Ramirez fight, I think the fight will go a little longer here, just based off of the fact that Ortiz Jr. is young. He's up and coming, and he hasn't faced anyone of the caliber of Hooker. But I think you will catch him somewhere between the 8th and the 12th round. I could say, because it could either be very, very early, where Ortiz just catches Hooker with one shot and that's it, because many people I've been seeing are picking Ortiz inside 4, but I think it will last a little longer. I think Ortiz will be ahead on the scorecards, and I think he will stop Maurice Hooker. Maybe in between 8, 9, 10. I could definitely see 11 or 12, but it's definitely going around 8, 9, or 10, just around there. So overall, I think Vergil Ortiz Jr. will stop Maurice Hooker in rounds 8, 9, or 10, definitely late in the fight, and he will get his 17th victory, 17th by knockout, and try to fight for that WBO world title in the future. And yeah, that's really it. I'm MB Boxing. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.